You're listening to UnitedWeStrike.com radio on the International Community Radio Network.
And for those of you who are too young to remember, that was indeed the Righteous Brothers doing a little ditty called Unchained Melody. Of course, I'm old enough, I remember when that was top 40. I tell you, they keep telling me that as you get older, time moves faster because you have a lot more to look back upon than you have to look forward to. That may indeed be the case. I don't know, but I'll tell you, this 2013 sure seems to have slipped past quickly. We are already at the Ides of December 14th, 2013. I guess it's just about time to kiss this one goodbye. Here's to hoping 2014 will be a little bit better for everyone. Although, to be honest with you, I have my concerns. Now, on the United We Strike Marathon, we obviously talk about a lot of issues. We talk about a lot of things that, most people would look at, oh, man, that's scary, that's problems, oh, this and that and the other thing, but quite often the missing component is potential solutions to the problem. Our next guest up is a fellow named David Frank. He's proposing a potential solution. And frankly, you may agree with his solution, you may disagree with his solution, but at least it is a positive message that might just provide the roadmap that could lead us to a somewhat more stable and egalitarian future. At this point, I would like to bring on David Frank, whose website is onevoicenow.info. OneVoiceNow, all one word, .info. And David Frank, I believe you are live.
Hey, good to be with you, Gary. And let me correct you. It's we've changed it. It's onevoicenow.org.
Onevoicenow.org. Well, see, I've got old information here. I'm going to have to talk to Matt. He's the one who printed up this cheat sheet that I'm working from. So, hey, Matt, fix it.
There you go.
Delegate. That's what they taught me in business school. A good manager delegates.
There you go. You get it fixed?
It's fixed.
All right. Anyway, Gary, I've been an activist for 25 years now. I used to do a radio program called Stand Up America, and you're right, all of these programs are talking about the problems. They have guests on that talk about this problem and that problem. When I was doing my radio program, I learned a lot about a lot of the problems, and I get to the point where I was up to my eyebrows with problems, and I realized that America was broken, and I realized that the people that broke it were not going to fix it. I don't care if you're talking about America or any place in Europe or wherever, but the politicians just don't have the answers to our problems. In fact, in many situations, in a lot of situations, they are the problem because they're being paid to make decisions on our behalf, and they're bought and paid for decisions. And whenever a person in a position of judging an issue takes money or campaign finances, whatever you want to call it, takes that money to render an answer to an issue, they will always take that money to render the wrong answer. They will not be bribed by campaign finances to render the right answer. And that's why our only alternative, I believe, is letting we, the people, start deciding these issues ourselves. And we're also learning that, top-down systems, whether it be our governmental system or governmental systems around the world, they always benefit the people at the top. Right now in America, we've got 5% of the population that now owns 80% of the wealth, that leaves 95% of us fighting over the 20% that's left. And it doesn't need to be this way. That 5% has a voice, 95% of us don't. What we need to do is use the communication technology that we have today, that we've never had before, and we need to put it in place community by community so that everybody has a voice and so that we can start rebuilding America from the ground up as opposed to believing it can be fixed from the top down. And what I've been doing is advocating that what we do is we remap America so that we can get organized. The The politicians have been remapping America for years with gerrymandering. They remapped so that they could get elected or reelected. The Postal Service figured it out. They remapped America with zip codes. The phone company figured it out. They remapped America with area codes. Well, we need to figure it out. And, in the age of Aquarius, which is where we're at now, we can now remap America so that it looks like a honeycomb. And every community can now look like a hexagon, because if you ever look at a honeycomb, you'll see it's made up of hexagons. And your community will now be a hexagon. What we want to do is we want to build a local issues television and radio channel as the nucleus of each hexagon, and a community computer that will be the database and when people vote on issues, so that we'll use our public or our local issues channel to send people's ideas out to make the environment better, education better, taxation, whatever it is. They can present their ideas directly to the community. We can debate those ideas because we want people educated on these issues. And then anybody that's interested in the issue can vote with any touch-tone phone. Their call will go into a community computer. It will ask them for their ID number and PIN number, ask them what issue number they'd like to vote on. Press 1 for yes, 2 for no, count the vote, block them out from voting more than once. And in a 21st century way, we can have decisions now made of the people, by the people, and for the people.
Well, to argue in favor of what you're putting out there, we have a situation now where, in theory, obviously, I still keep an eye on them, but in theory, banks can allow you to do electronic transfers to and from your various accounts and pay bills online and all that, and they seem to manage to keep an accounting of every penny right down to the last little half cent, which they scrape off and put in their own coffers. But you think about it, you think, okay, we've had this technology for some time now, where obviously the banks have become masterful at manipulating their electronic banking systems in such a way that they are effective. It seems to me that it should be fairly simple to implement a plan like what you're suggesting from a technological standpoint. But now, the other argument's going to come along and say, yeah, well, we've been voting with these Diebold machines for quite a while, and we see where that's got us, and all the choices that are put up before us, we basically are presented with choices between poo-poo and doo-doo. How is your system really going to be any different? I mean, whoever controls the committee is going to decide on what it is you get to vote on. So how is it really going to be any different?
Well, you're not going to be voting for poo-poo or doo-doo anymore. You don't need poo-poo and doo-doo in your life anymore. You needed them before so that they could decide the answers to these issues in our lives. But now you can evolve into adulthood and make those decisions yourself. And, we're not talking about the same kind of voting machines that Diebold. We're talking about one community computer that can be fail-safed. It's not a problem. The banks haven't had a problem. And these are going to, instead of, the banks are using technology to collect our money, we're going to use that same technology to collect people's voices. And we're going to see how people feel in our communities about, the environment or education or healthcare, whatever it is. But the technology is here. All we're doing is putting the components together. Gary, we live in the 21st century. We have the food channel, travel channel, sports channel. We have all these different channels, hundreds of channels. We just don't have the most important channel. And the most important channel in every community is the local issues television and radio channel. What we want to do is we want to use our local public broadcasting station to actually broadcast the public. We want that station to be our local issues television and radio channel. And then also we're voting on American Idol, we vote on CNN, Fox, all these different venues. We want to use that technology so that when people watch issues that they have an interest in and they want to respond, they can vote with any touch-tone phone. It now becomes your voting device. and the computer will verify you as a voter and prevent you from voting more than once. So it's a difference between putting all our eggs in one basket and having 9 goofballs sit on a city council, or 150 goofballs in state capitals, or 535 goofballs in Washington making decisions for 300 million people. Now what we can do is we can really start using as many brain cells as possible and start tapping into that knowledge and wisdom that's in those 300 million people. And the best way that you do that is that the same way you eat an elephant, you do it piece by piece, community by community. And the exciting thing about it is when we put this technology in each community, when we find things that work in our community, we'll share that with the rest of the country. And when the rest of the country finds things that work, they'll share it with us, and we can start rebuilding America from the ground up. You don't build anything from the top down. That's silly. I mean, nothing. Everything that's good for us comes from the ground up, and that's the kind of system that this will be.
Well, what about something like parliamentary procedure or the Roberts Rules of Order? I mean, do you envision some sort of structure involved in how debate on issues are put forward? Because, I mean, let's face it, the way politics works right now, the guy who's most familiar with parliamentary procedure and how to move stuff from committee onto the floor quite often has a significant edge over average Joe who might just been elected as congressman, comes in, and it takes him 3-4 terms to figure out what he's got to do to get an argument even considered. What sort of framework would you expect to place on this community entity that's going to consider arguments from the public and put them forward for debate?
I think the first thing, Gary, we've got to admit to ourselves is we really have no representation. Because the only way that you can have representation is through communication. I'm 65 years old. I've never been asked my opinion on any issue, so I have no communication. If I'm your lawyer and you're my client, and if we don't communicate, I can't represent you. Or if I'm your doctor and you're my patient, I can't represent you if we don't communicate. These people have not communicated with us, so we really have no representation. The decisions that are being made on a federal, state, and local level are really not of the people, by the people, and for the people. But this is the way it can work very simply. Once we get our computer up and running and we get people registered in the computer, we don't want to hear frivolous issues, so we need a filtering system. And what's going to happen is the computer is going to pick 10 people at random every week, and they're going to be like our grand jury, if you will. And they're only going to be there for 1 week, and then we're going to get rid of them and call another 10 people. And the reason is the same reason the judicial system gets rid of a jury after every issue, so the money and the corruption doesn't get to them. So now we've got these 10 people, and Dave Frank, average citizen, would like to present an idea to these people, and his idea is that we should have a law that says no driving and drinking. He can present his idea to these 10 people. If the majority of these 10 people think that this is an idea that should be considered, then Dave gets to go to the next step, which is videotaping Dave and presenting his issue to the community over a 10-day period over our local issues television and radio channel. There will be 2 phone numbers that will be given every time the video is replayed. One number people can call and be part of a lobbying group for the issue. One number they can call and be part of a lobbying group against the issue. When they call either one of these numbers, information will be given to them as to where and when these 2 lobbying groups are going to come together and prepare. 30 days later, we're going to have a debate by these 2 lobbying groups, and we're going to videotape the debate, and we're going to present the videotape over a 10-day period over our local issues television and radio channel. It will be assigned an issue number and a local phone number. Anybody that wants to vote on this issue can pick up any touch-tone phone. They'll call a local number. It'll go into the community computer, the database. It'll ask for their ID number and PIN number, ask what issue number they'd like to vote on, press 1 for yes, 2 for no, count the vote, block them out from voting more than once. Every time the debate is replayed, there'll be an updated tally of the yeses and the nos. And at the end of 10 days, not only will your community be educated on the issue, but the outcome will come from them. They will implement that idea in their community. And like I said before, when we find things that work, we'll share it with the rest of the country. And when they find things that work, they'll share it with us. and we can start rebuilding from the ground up. This really gives us the opportunity to really tap into more brain cells, because right now we have 267,000 people in our community. We're only using 9 people on the city or the county council. It's a brain dead system. On a state level, we have 6 million people in the state of Indiana, and we're using 150 people, most of them who don't live in our community, and they really don't care about our community. It's a brain dead system. And on a federal level, out of 300 million brain cells, we're only using 535, another brain dead system. And what we've got to do is fire up as many brain cells as possible and start coming up with solutions to these problems that the political machine has proven that they can't solve.
The other thing that comes to mind is, how do we encourage participation? Because, in our current system, it seems a very small percentage of the potential voters are actually taking the time to go down and actually cast a ballot. And frankly, I'm often torn. I mean, I feel like it's my civic duty. Even though I don't like any of the guys who are running, I feel like I ought to go down and at least cast my vote for the one that I think stinks the least.
There you go.
But how do you encourage your community to participate in a system? Because one of the problems we've got right now, frankly, David, is that very few people actually participate.
That's David Frankly, by the way. Frankly speaking.
David Frankly speaking, yeah.
But, Gary, you make it available. And what we have is we haven't, they don't want us voting. They never have. That's why they have it on Tuesday during working hours. One day a week, you got to drive down to these primitive voting booths, and you make it available. And that's what this system does. Hey, you don't even have to leave your home if you don't want to. And you make it very simple. And the reason that most people don't vote is, like you said, Gary, it's like voting between poop and stink. I mean, who wants to... nobody believes that any of these goofballs have all the answers. I mean, whenever I hear a politician stand up and say, you got to vote for me because I've got the answers, you know what? Anybody that thinks that they know more than 267,000 people, I think has some real ego problems. They've got some serious problems. And these are the people that we have running our lives right now. I walked into a restaurant. This was several years ago, and a Notre Dame football coach called me over, and he says, Dave, he says, come here. He says, I got a question for you. I said, what's up, Tom? He says, Dave, what happens to a person's mind when they win an election? I said, Tom, let me explain it this way. I said, do you have a toaster on your counter? He said, yeah. I said, Tom, that toaster was built for 110 watts or volts of power. I said, you know what happens when you put a 220 into that toaster when you give it too much power? I said, it no longer functions. And that's what happens to people when they win elections. There's not one person that knows more than 10,000 people in our community. And it's silly of us to keep believing that that person exists. The best way for 10,000 people to have representation, real representation, let's just ask them. And this is the technology that we have now. We've never had before. Didn't have it 235 years ago. 235 years ago, if you wanted a piece of chicken, you had to run into the woods and see if you could find a chicken. It's not like that. We don't live in the same world anymore. And they did the best that they could 235 years ago. But this is a new world. This is a world that's filled with communication technology so that we can bring that collective consciousness together. We've got 7 people that sit on a school board. By bringing all of these components together, we might have 25,000 people in our community that start working on the education system. We might have 25,000 people that start working to make our environment better, a better healthcare system, a more fair tax system, whatever it is. But all this technology is a way to interconnect all of those brain cells, sort of like they did during World War II when they had the Manhattan Project. And they brought those like-minded people together. They all had little pieces of the puzzle. They brought them together under one roof, and they built the bomb. Well, I don't want to build a bomb. I just want to start fixing the things that are broken in our society. And I believe that the technology that we now have is the way to do it.
Well, I would consider a bomb as a last resort, but obviously we'd like to avoid such things if we possibly can. But I have on occasion debated the argument that anyone who stands up and says, I want this political office, should immediately be disqualified for being insane. And I've often argued in favor of perhaps a community draft where you put the top business leaders in your neighborhood into a hat, and somebody that everybody trusts puts his hand into the hat, pulls out the name, and gee, I'm sorry, Mr. Leading businessman of the community, but your community has drafted you to be our representative or whatever. And so you're going to have to take a big pay cut, and you're going to have to put your business into escrow. And really sorry about that, but your community needs you. But there's different points of view on this. But one of the things I would be in favor of is excluding anybody from office who wants it, because obviously they're not rational.
Well, anymore it's financially beneficial to be in office. I mean, they've destroyed the good jobs in America with NAFTA, and that's how I became an activist. But I think we're all starting to learn that if you work for the government, you make 70% more than the average guy that's doing that job outside of the government.
Yeah, and I remember when I came up out of school, it was only the guys who couldn't get a real job that went to work for the government. What the heck happened?
Well, I think it's still that way, or just desperation, because, like I said, they've ruined the good jobs in America by sending them over to slaves in other countries. But we need to fix our piece of America in our own communities, and if everybody quits waiting for Obama or Bush or whoever to ride into their community and have all the answers. It's time that we grow up and quit believing in Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny and the Wizard of Oz, and we start believing in ourselves. If everybody fixes their own piece of America, the next thing we know, America will be fixed. But that's the only way that it's going to happen. It's not going to happen in Washington, D.C. Those people, we know that that's organized crime there. We know it. We know that the corporations are now running America through the lobbyists that have bribed the politicians. We know that. So what are we going to do? Are we going to start fixing our own piece of America, or are we going to wait for the people that have prostituted themselves to the corporations to do it for us? They're being bribed to make the wrong decisions. What we need to do is find the truth, because we know it's going to be the truth that'll make us free. The technology, the T for the truth also stands for technology. We've never had this before, Gary. I mean, I don't know how old you are. I'm 65. I'm sitting here talking to someone across the country. I could look at you if we wanted to. I mean, this technology is nothing short of miraculous. Let's put it to use in every community. Let's quit waiting for the politicians to do it for us. Have you ever thought of the word politics? A tick is a bloodsucker. Politics means many bloodsuckers. I don't want anybody sucking my blood, and that's what these guys are doing. And they're laughing all the way to the bank. We can do this, but if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Everybody's talking about the problems. Nobody's talking about the solutions. What I'm trying to do is offer a solution. I won the Dr. Martin Luther King Award here in Indiana because this fulfills the dream of Dr. King. He wasn't about giving black people a voice. He was about giving all people a voice. That's what this plan and this technology does for everyone. And I hope everyone takes the opportunity to look at our website. It's all right there. It's One Voice Now, ONE voicenow.org. The plan is right there. You can get busy in your own community. You can talk to your public broadcasting station and tell them that you want to use that as your local issues, television and radio channel. Start presenting this plan to your local city council and find somebody that really does care about the city as opposed to most of them that just care about themselves. And let's put the components together and empower the people. And instead of fighting over issues, why don't we start using our heads and resolving issues?
Well, I tell you, it was a well-stated argument, sir. And on that note, we have run out of time. Now, I'm not going to wait for Superman and Green Lantern to save me. I am going to take a look at your material on the website. But now you picked on old Santa Claus, and I'll tell you what, man, I am cleaning my chimney right now because I ain't going to take any chances.
Very good, Gary. You're great. Hey, Gary, thank you so much for all you do.
Always a pleasure.
Seriously. And please, everybody, check out onevoicenow.org, ONEvoicenow.org. I think you'll really like it.
Take care, David, and we'll see you next month. Good night.
Thank you, Gary. Good night.
This is United We Strike Radio on the International Community Radio Network. Don't buy, don't comply, ask why. UnitedWeStrike.com Radio.